Hat's been on all day. See if I can get this guy set up. Last time we did this was about 1 month ago now. Kind of seem to do it once a month. Kind of spread that fella out there. We'll get the mega cab right in the shot. Now, hopefully I don't touch it. Clear coat is still drying on it. Now we'll come over here. You guys can see me drink my Canada Dry. Oh, jeez. But I guess I can't really read it if I'm all the way over there. Oh. All right, so we got a few burning questions from you guys. I think I should probably come over here. Hold on. Let me set up there real quick before we actually get into questions. That's not bad. Nope, that's... Hold on. Try to get the whole truck in the picture. And me. There we go. That's not so bad. The shop is a disaster. Usually I get into cleaning the entire front end of the shop before winter, but we did the Trans Am project and the Mega Cab basically back to back, and now we're into November, mid-November, late November. It's you know how she goes. So after the Mega Cab paintwork's all done, hopefully this weekend I can throw him out and clean up this front half, because we're starting to trip over everything. It is what it is. All right, so I'll get into the questions I see up here right now, but I have some burning questions that have been asked in the last couple of videos. So, what do we got? Mind of a cucumber. How much have I spent on the Mega Cab? It all depends on how you want to look at it. That might not be the answer you want, but as of green money, monetary money, not a lot. Maybe $1,400, all said and done. That includes steel, cutting discs, paint, clear coat. The clear coat's actually really expensive. It's $150 for the kit. I have the kit here somewhere. Yes. And that's American. And Canadian, it's not good. Speedy Coat T-Rex protective coatings is what I went with. Where is it? High gloss. Yeah. 1 gallon kit. It just had enough to do the entire truck. Just. Well, anyway, so if you're looking at all of that, it's about that sum. Now, if you were going to include the trucks in it, as for the tires, the trucks, all the stuff that I kind of already had, your bill is likely going to be quite a lot higher. And that's, again, one of the main reasons why we built the Mega Cab is we had so many extra parts lying around. Just in the barn alone, minus cabs and box, I basically had 4 trucks just sitting in parts alone. We still have maybe half of a truck in here sitting in parts alone. We still have half of a cab outside and a chassis. We had parts galore. So building the Mega Cab was the only sensible thing to do, at the end of the day. So, I don't know what the estimate would be. It's a 6.9 IDI T19 4-speed transmission. I believe it's an MP208 an MP208 chain drive aluminum transfer case. Dana 50 twin I-beam front and Sterling 10 1/4 rear. The tires, 36 by, nope, those are 33 by 8s. Military tires. A lot of you guys want to know exactly what they are. They're Michelin X military tires. They look pretty darn aggressive on this truck. Used to have 36 by 9-inch military tires when it was a super cab. Mega Cab has the 33s. A little bit easier to daily drive. No more welded diff, all that stuff. Either way, if you had to buy all the trucks, all the steel, everything, and you just didn't have it lying around, it could likely be a quite costly project. And if it was a quite costly project, we likely would have took our time with it a little bit more. We'll touch on that in a second, but the main reason why we're kind of blasting through this guy, this is the winter truck. One of, I forget who it was. It was one of the early Mega Cab videos. One of you fellas said, why did you go ahead and touch the winter truck right before winter? And that was a very Good point. My super cab was always the daily driver for the winter, year-round scrap truck. Whatever I needed to do rough and tough, grab the old 6.9 IDI and she'll get the job done every time. Well, we ended up cutting him all apart because it needed a cab anyway. The cab was done for this year. And basically, we got head over heels and bit into a little bit of the of the main meal at the end of the day. So that's basically ancient history now. She's sitting right behind me. That's enough rambling on that. We'll get more into that in just a little bit, but I'm going to try to keep up with your guys' comments here. Why two colors? All right. So, why the two colors? I always like two-tone. It matches for the 80s, the 70s, some of the 90s. Two-tone is just, I like it at the end of the day. What I actually originally wanted to do, but cost of paint-wise, it wasn't going to happen, was a red and white two-tone. Plus, I couldn't call it Old Blue anymore, but there's a truck near me that's red and white. It's a 97 Power Stroke diesel, quad cab, long bed, dually, two-wheel drive. Beautiful truck. He only uses it to haul his pontoon boat and his RV. That is it. It is in very, very, very phenomenal shape. But that combo, it would have been the white roof, red hood, white stripe, red under. It's quite a beautiful truck. That was originally the inspiration for this, but when we started to crunch down cost, red paint is considerably more expensive than blue paint. So midnight blue and black ended up being the color combination of choice, mainly for cost. This isn't a SEMA build. This isn't an all-out fabrication, all-out base clear, all that stuff. We dabbled in that. It's still a base clear system, but it's definitely not. I wouldn't take this to a car show. Maybe because it's unique, but it's not that type of truck. Never was. What else we got? How high are you from that clear coat? I don't know. That's going to be for you guys to tell me, I think, at the end of the day. I guess the question is, do you know you're high if you're high? It's windy outside. What else we got? What is the vision for all the inside finishing color plastic dash seat at the end of the day? Well, on live streams, I like to give you guys sneak peeks and see exactly what's coming down the pipe. So, let me show you some stuff that's in the barn. There's some other stuff in the house that I'd have to go get, and frankly, I should have had out here more prepared, but I can tell you about it. In the house, we have two heated seat elements that are going to be grafted into a bench seat. I have 3 bench seats right now. We have the vinyl seat that's in it. I have a cloth red seat and another cloth red seat. The idea is we have a complete insulation DIY kit that we're going to be putting inside this guy, front to back. We have a Webesto diesel heater. They're commonly used in semi-trucks. Basically, heat up your bunk so you don't have to run your big engine while you sleep, so you don't freeze up here, especially at negative 30, that kind of stuff. You want one of those little diesel heaters. The old 6.9 IDI hardly heats up at all. I think the hottest this guy ever got was 185 for me. So in the winter, she's a frosty unit until you're driving for about 30 minutes. We don't want that. So we got a Webesto diesel heater that we're going to be grafting into this, maybe mid-cab, whatever, and we'll make our own ductwork for defrost and centralized heat. And a heater that goes, like, we'll put another ductwork that goes underneath the rear seat because they're not getting heated seats. So the idea is we'll drive it with the vinyl seat up front, cloth seat in the back, kind of bare bones interior for the very beginning. As for the door panels and all that stuff, it's just stock replacement parts, kind of refreshing things as we go. Stock did a good job. I like the look of it. Headliner, we still have to figure out. We don't have the base cardboard or anything. That's going to have to be all from scratch. And then as for carpet, we're going to be likely using black. Black carpet, exterior carpet. laying it all on the floor, cutting it and molding it ourselves because they don't make a carpet for this, and I am not paying $1,000 for a carpet from Rock Auto for a crew cab. Not happening. So that's kind of the general plan of what we're doing on the interior. We have a CB, whole bunch of stuff. It's going to really start to come together, but we're going to be driving it bare bones for the initial bit because the interior is one of those things I can work at as I'm driving the truck. I think I would rather do that. As long as the insulation's in it, the rest can kind of come into play as we go. We'll bundle it all up and make it into one video, but I would rather enjoy the truck as I build the interior. I have all the pieces. It's just, I need to get this guy out here. We're already at the tail end of November, and we're doing paint in the barn. It's currently -6. I guess you can't see my breath right now. Must be the light. Whatever. Currently -6. It's supposed to go to -22 tonight. So we had to get the clear coat on, flash up, and it's going to be completely dry in the next couple hours, 1 or 2. Has a lot of activator in it. Let's just say that. We're using the old winter mix on the old paint here. But that's the general gist of it. We want to drive the truck as we build the interior, but we have a complete interior video coming, and we have a complete exterior video coming. And we still got to do a, I don't know if you would call it a cut and, no, you wouldn't call it a cut and butt. Cut and buff. Yes, like a cut and buff. We're going to basically wet sand the entire clear coat on this because I'll show you guys in a second. One of the not so cool bonuses of -5, -6 outside, paint doesn't, like to cling onto things. It also because I'm a complete under novice. I don't even consider myself a novice at paint work or body work. So those two factors did not help us in paint runs. But wet sanding the clear, it's going to help out quite a lot. Plus, it's going to give us that shine that we so desire. If that makes sense. Yeah. I hope that covered your question. Interior is coming, yes, as we drive the truck. But the exterior, all that stuff, and the mechanical is going to happen first. All right, hold on. Where did we leave off? Good evening, Michael. How's it going? CB Redneck, I hope to see that out Catamount Pit. I'm going to have to look up where that is. Never heard of it. So I'm sure it's close by or it's 1,000 miles away. One of the two. Colt, you're the best, man. Great job. I am a fan for sure. Appreciate it, Mike. Always. My International Pro Series, semi-tractor, I have a cab sleep bunk heater. They're awesome. Yes, it's technically not a Webesto, and it's technically not an S-Bar. It's a German brand. It's not a Chinese diesel heater that you'll find off Amazon, those ready-made kits. I wanted something that would last and be quite reliable, so I went with a good quality unit. It's secondhand, but it will work out good. A lot of this stuff is secondhand. I think the paint is the newest thing this truck has seen in years. Is what it is. Once you get everything sorted out, like axles, you should put a 3208 Caterpillar V8, 32 liters of displacement. You see, me and a buddy were actually talking about engine swaps for this. The 6.9 IDI will work for me for quite a long time. They've been robust power plants as of right now. Just hums away. It doesn't make a lot of power, but you really don't need 300, 400 horsepower driving around town and hauling small trailers or even a car trailer or a tractor. Just not what you need. Is it cool? Yes. But right now, we just kind of want wheels that we can make good content for you guys that's maybe not in the barn. If you haven't noticed, a lot of the last videos have been just barn videos, and that's fine. But we also like to get out and do things. We need a winter vehicle to do those things. You know what I mean? So that's what we're going to be doing. All right, let's see if I can get closer. Oh, yes. What I was touching on is basically we're thinking about putting a DT466 in her down the road. Hush, hush. You know what I mean? But we'll see. It won't be for a while. We want to finish the International first and then see what's going on with that 403 Ultimobile. It's kind of sitting beside me all sad. We still don't know We haven't even taken the pan off or anything to see what went wrong on the 403 Oldsmobile. But those are two projects that are coming way before a DT466 inside this. But that might be the plan for this old sweetheart. That may be an overdrive. 1-to-1 gear ratio on the highway sucks. It's just how she goes. All right, what else we got? Has Peg seen it in person yet? No, Peg has not seen it in person yet. Not yet, anyway. We'll leave it at that. It's up off the 126. I'll have to look into it. I likely have passed it thousands of times, but the name escapes me. It's just how she goes. But I'll look it up. It very well might make its pilgrimage out there. First, we have a couple cool video ideas for this guy. Basically, one of them, we're going to be taking it to the Ford dealerships around my area and comparing it to new Fords, the Mega Cab. We're going to have to do it on a Sunday or else those pesky salesmen will be all over this fella trying to trade in that brand new Platinum for the Mega Cab. Nope, that's not going to happen. No. So that's the plan anyway. We got that. We have a couple fellas in Moncton that kind of want to go over with us. Their YouTube channels. That's going to be kind of cool. We haven't done any collaborations yet with any other channels, but we have some coming down the pipeline. A couple local and a couple far, far away. What else we got? Loving the Mega Cab build. I appreciate it, Ricky, as always. I don't got to tell you that. You already know. What are you going to do with the old cab? The blue one or the brown one? You're going to have to be more specific, because the brown one is going to be stripped for parts, basically. We need the firewall section for the International, clutch pedal assembly, all that stuff. We still have to take the windshield out of the brown one. The blue one is pretty much just chicken coop scrap metal, really, at the end of the day. We might do something with it. Maybe we'll run it over with the Mega Cab. I don't know. But it's got, I guess it would be kind of symbolic taking the old cab with the new truck to the scrap metal and seeing the big fork or the big hand thing. Big steel contraption come and grab her and then throw her in the crusher. You know what I mean? But we still got to do a couple things to both of those before they disappear. 8V71. That would be a neat engine swap. The old two-stroke inside this thing. We'll see. One thing that we learned from the 460 F-150 Shorty, it's nice to have horsepower, and it's nice to have torque, and it's nice to have a toy. But you kind of want something that, especially when you're always working, like me, always working in the barn, always going far away to go pick something up, or just daily driving the sucker, you want to be able to do just that. If you get something that only gets 7 miles a gallon, like the 460 big block, it's beautiful, but it's not very practical. Not especially at today's gas prices, that's for sure. So the old 6.9 works really good. It's 16 miles per gallon with this combination. Ooh, excuse me. 16 miles per gallon with this combo. We've documented that a couple times here on the channel. It works out pretty darn slick, and it's decent enough that you can daily drive it, and it's not going to hurt your wallet too much. The big block 460, not so much. But that's also the reason why we put a 6.9 IDI in the International, the 54. That way we can afford to putt around them and go on trips with them and all that stuff. It would be nice to put a high horsepower engine or a really unique whatever into them. But for the core builds on the channel, core builds being the Mega Cab, 6.9 IDI, and we have a couple other core builds that we've touched on here before, like the 1950s F47. It will be soon after the International. And we have a trailer that we're going to do. We have a couple things coming down the pipeline for sure. And then some things that come up on our lap and everything. But that's just in the shop working. We have a lot of other things going on too that we're going to be doing. Either way, we'll get all into it. But for right now, 6.9 IDI is staying just because mileage is great. And I actually want to drive this thing. Got to drive it in the winter. It's actually the only it's actually the only classic ride I drive in the winter. So it is what she is. We want to get this guy going and we want him reliable, basically. That's what we want. I got my old man's F250 with a 7.3 IDI, 4-speed, and he swapped in a snowbank after the 6.9 IDI. Took crap on him, and the old girl is just a charm. I bet she is. These old trucks there, they hum along like sewing machines, even when you throw the world at them. Just look at Slave Lake from Zip Ties and Bias Plies. That thing has seen the kitchen sinking back, and I think it's still alive. I'm not entirely sure. Don't quote me on that. You'll have to ask old Peg and Leggin himself. Well, that's just the way she goes. All right, what else we got? Did we ever think that this project would take on this much interest, says Michael. Many people are watching and awaiting this project. To be honest, we just like to fiddle around and build weird things. And I always wanted a crew cab. I touched on this in the it might not have been the first video. I think I was pretty vague in the first video of what we were doing, just in case we would scare off people. But the second video, when I put both cabs kind of meshed together, the jig was up. People knew what was going on. Crew cab prices around my parts are quite expensive, $6,500 plus for basically a rotten out husk. There's one right now on Marketplace, wants $3,500, and I don't think there's a body panel on it that has steel, if you know what I mean. I think it's all been reclaimed back to the earth. Wants $3,500 for it, and it doesn't even run. So, yeah, it's not good. And that's not a dually either, but it is a crew cab. So, away she goes. Two-wheel drive, too, by the way. It doesn't even have a Dana 60. That's what I mean. For a four-wheel drive unit that runs and drives and is a decent work truck, it's $6,500. We don't even have close to $6,500 in this mega cab, and we're a little bit bigger at the end of the day. So it's win-win all around. As for interest from a lot of other people, I guess a lot of other people just like seeing fellas work on their own stuff that don't have thousands and thousands of dollars to do it. The common man type thing. We're literally in an unheated barn. It's supposed to be negative 22, 20-some degrees tomorrow. We're still going to be working out here in the cold, freezing, doing our mechanical work on this fella. It's just the way she goes. It's just what every other fella does. I'm quite thankful that we have a roof over our heads for doing these projects in the winter, but there's a lot of fellas that are just working in snowbanks, and I had to take a body lift out of a 1994 Explorer during a snowstorm, a 35-centimeter snowstorm. Not sure what that is in inches, but it was a good amount, blowing snow, all that stuff. 7 hours outside in a driveway taking a 4-inch body lift out. It is what it was. That was in my early years of mechanical stuff. Before I really knew what I was doing. Knew enough to be dangerous, though. That's what some people say. What else we got? CB Redneck, do you plan on doing any meetups around Moncton to see that beast? During the winter, there's not a lot going on, tell you the honest truth. There's a few fellas that want to do interviews with this, and I'm all for it. I'll bring it to whoever really wants to see it, as long as I work full-time, overtime, all that stuff. So kind of keep her closest to home, within a couple 100 kilometers, so a couple 100 miles, basically, for the first little bit. But we do plan on doing some things with this guy in the summer, mostly during the winter, but in the summer, he's still going to be around hauling things for us and hauling our other toys around for us, basically. And we plan on doing a lot of meetups with the International. So during the summer, we'll see about winter. We'll see if there's any interest, really, on meetups and that kind of stuff. Maybe we can all go get Tim Hortons coffee or eat a fine Burger King meal. Or Dixie Lee. If you guys don't know what Dixie Lee is, it's a fried chicken spot. Yeah, or we could all eat poutine râpé and bucktouche. But what I'm basically getting at is I'm not against meetups. We never done one, so I don't know what to expect. It would likely be, forgive my language, but it would likely be an absolute shit show at the very beginning. But we'll figure her out as we go. So, likely, I wouldn't hold my breath for one right now, but during the summer, spring and fall, for sure, 100%. We just weren't at the caliber that we wanted to be to do them this year, if that answers your question. But maybe during the winter, maybe. I'm not against it. I'm not against going to get coffee and all that kind of stuff. Kevin says, love the build. Just wondering what you would look like if you flip the sides of the rear doors, putting the flat part of the door forward. Now, we did cover that in episode 2, actually. We went to the whiteboard and basically, whiteboard's over beside me. We went to the whiteboard and went over a couple different ideas for the mega cab build. Because we had, the world was our oyster, basically. We could do whatever we wanted. We were already welding 2 cabs together. Might as well get creative if we wanted. The only reason why we didn't do the back-to-back cab, it would have been by far the easiest to do, by far. But the main reason why is we didn't want the extra fabrication from moving doorposts to the correct orientation. Because down the road, believe it or not, this vehicle also needs to be able to haul kiddos. Because you never know. Making her future ready. That's also another reason why we never did a single cab long bed dually build. That was kind of the original plan. Halfway, I would say, between episode 1 and episode 2. Or sorry, between the beginning of episode 1 and the end of episode 1. It was still kind of a single cab long bed dually build. But down the road, I knew we were going to have to phase him out and get another one. Might as well build a crew cab. Well, we are still young and dumb, basically. That being said, when we do start the interior work, we will be making it a little bit more plush than our usual interior as we build upon it. It's going to be a vehicle that we build upon for quite a while as we grow with the channel. Because we want it to be safe, basically, at the end of the day. There was a couple people asking, is it even safe to have 2 cabs welded together? Yeah, if you watch the complete series, we have a lot of bracing in the floor, bracing in the roof, bracing going across, everything. She's a very robust cab at the end of the day. The frame, it's been gusseted and it's been sleeved, so it's good on that too. So, safety-wise, we're pretty hunky-dory. I think so. But really, only time will tell. When we start to actually drive this thing down the road, it's going to tell us a lot on if we got our measurements right. I think we did. If we got this far, I think we're going to be okay. I'm not worried at all. What else we got? Hello from Montana. Yes, sir, God's country. That's what that is, for sure. Same as Alberta. Gotta love them. Dipperman, 18. The Mega Cab makes me miss my 1986 Ford F-250 6.9 IDI. I don't blame you. That's what this fella was originally. Super cab, long bed, 4-wheel drive. Couldn't ask for any better. Yeah, pretty much exactly the way you had it. Except not single cab. She got rolled and totaled, so I had to sell her for only 1,200. Oh, sorry, no, I can't read. 126,000 original miles. That's pretty darn slick, really. I think that comes out to like 210 or something like that in kilometers. So the old 6.9 IDI is just a baby at that point. But I don't blame you. These trucks are starting to get more expensive. It's almost like you'll have a higher return on investment if you bought up, say you had a patch of land, you bought up 15 of these trucks, put them on center blocks, and just let them sit for 10 plus years. At the end of those 10 years, you might be able to make $2,500, $4,000 on each of those items. Let's look at square body Chevrolets. Those prices are nuts. Wind. I was going to say, hopefully it's not rain, because we still likely got an hour and a half before that is water ready. Yeah, I think it's just rain. Reliability is the key. 100%, especially during the winter. Especially when it might be the only vehicle outside putting around. Because right now we're driving the Sierra, but that's one of my dad's old vehicles. That's going to be going away, basically, whenever the Mega Cab comes out. Still got to figure out what we're going to do with all that stuff. But either way, right now we're just kind of putting around the Sierra. The Mega Cab's going to replace him. He is going to be the daily driver for the rest of the winter. So reliability is definitely the key. That's also why we're kind of blazing the trail through this build series and really getting something done, because we need this guy out and about. He needs to go back to work. That's 100% the truth. There's a lot of things that I do with a truck throughout, let's say, a month that I can't do with a car, and I can't do with a truck that I can't afford to beat on. So the old 6.9 IDI, I'm sure missing him. But when he's out, we will be making work content with him. We got a lot of stuff to do. That's for sure. Evan says, are stealing column wires in the 1980 Fords is a common problem? Because I want to fix it in the old 302 EFI and the F-150. It's got electrical problems, and I don't want anything. Could those wires be the problem? Evan, be a little bit more clear of what's going on, because on these, it depends on what year of or I guess 1980s, yeah. 1980s, more so on the 80s Fords. It's not so much the wires, it's the actual, what's it called there? The ignition switch down at the base of the column. There's a rod that goes all the way to the top, basically where your automatic selector is. They call it the wishbone. It's a little cast aluminum piece that hooks in and moves stuff around. When he brakes, he doesn't activate that ignition switch anymore. It's kind of screwy, the whole thing. We could get all into steering columns if you want. Old Blue's running one from an 88 right now. They're pretty much plug and play. We might flip over the steering wheel, from the early 80s and put that in. It's kind of a more period correct, looks a little bit better. But the thick wheel from the late 80s is quite nice in the hand, not gonna lie. What are my plans for the black Chevy in the barn that has all the stuff in the bed? Oh, you mean this fella? That guy? You mean the gargoyle? The guy that's been parked in the barn since the beginning of the YouTube channel, and we never talk about it and we never touch it? Tell you the honest truth, it's one of my dad's last projects. We kind of brought it here because he wanted to work on it, but then he got too sick and this has been kind of sitting. We don't know what we're going to do with the old square body yet, really. There's a lot of projects that we want to do. Oh, let's get the mega cab back in her. There we go. There's a lot of projects that we want to go about and do. Square body, we're not sure where he falls into it yet. If we start to dive into it, we'll want to finish it. But even him, he never really started to dive into it. So it's just, right now, it's just kind of a truck. You know what I mean? There's some more things that mean more to me that my dad had that I would like to see running, driving, back on the road than the square body that we never really got to touch, either him or I. So we'll see. We'll see what's going to happen. But as of right now, kind of the general plan is he'll be going this winter down to a different property and being stored there. Gives us a little bit more wiggle room in the barn, especially when we have a truck that's 23.5 feet long if we have to work on it. So yeah, we need the space. So he's going down to another property, but as of right now, we're not sure what we're going to do with him yet, if that answers your question. Ricky, this truck is probably safer than factory with all the extra bracing. I would say so. It's built kind of, not so much the doors, because, you know, they're 80s Ford doors. They're kind of like sheet metal, or they're kind of like tissue paper is what I'm trying to say. But the rest of the cab is built a lot like a derby car, really. It has 4 I-beams that span front to back on the floor, and then 3 beams up in the roof, and then 2 that come down on the B-pillars. There's quite a lot of bracing in that cab. There was no flex that I could measure lifting off one side of the cab and seeing how much it flexed on the other side. When we did that to move it onto the car dolly or the little dolly when we were painting, there was almost no flex in it. No, there was no flex in it at all. So we're doing pretty darn slick. Maxime Obey, best way to find a good project in the Maritimes. It depends on what your skill level is. It depends on what you want. If it's gonna be like an F-150 or a square body Chevy or something like that, you know the rule of thumb. If you're in the Maritimes, body, that's what you want to go after. Engines, transmissions, all that stuff, you can get those all the live long day. Build it, piece it together. If you learned anything from the upload schedule on the bodywork, and you know the bodywork isn't the hottest because I did it, but if you learned anything from that, it takes a lot of time to do bodywork and have it look very, very showroom, is what I'm kind of getting at. So if you have a long-term project in mind, if you get a really clean, straight, rust-free, dent-free body to begin with, the mechanical side doesn't take a long time at all. That would be my biggest advice to someone who is looking to get in an old ride. Find the best body you can in the Maritimes. That's just the way she goes. As for like 1950s and all that stuff, if you're trying to get into trucks, think about it this way and ask yourself this. Do you really want an all original, not like 1950s putt truck that you'll only really be able to drive to car shows and putting around town maybe? If you live out of town, guess what? That old truck can likely only do, I don't know, 30 mile an hour. Everyone behind you wants to do 60 mile an hour. So guess who's going to be ran off the road? It's not a fun drive. That's the whole story with the 1950s F68. It is geared very, very low, and it only has a 3-speed transmission with a 1-to-1 ratio and the flathead V8 Ford in it. She's slow, very slow. You don't want to drive that every day. That being said, if you like the body style and you do want to drive it every day, look at putting it on something a little bit more modern. It doesn't have to be from the 2000s. But a Ford Ranger and an F68 or a Ford Ranger and an F100, they come together like peas in a pod from the 1950s, 1940s and under. If you're going 70s and stuff, pretty much anything's up to you. You can put it on any chassis you want. 80s is still new enough that you can live with from day to day and you can still do highway speed and have a good time. But you're not gaining, you're not winning any huge performance records with these old 80s techs. Basically how she goes. What else we got? Ralph says, got an 03 Super Duty Lariat F350 dually, 6 liters since 2012. Still in great shape and reliable long box from southern Alberta. Yes, sir. It's likely in really good shape if it's from out west. East Coast trucks, they dissolve, basically. If you parked one and left it out at the end of your driveway for 10 years, at the end of those 10 years, it's going to have holes in it. It's just the way she goes around here. It's not even the sea breeze. It's just they salt the roads to death around these parts. So you might be asking why we put all this work into a mega cab, did all this stuff, and we're going to drive it in the winter? I must be crazy. She did an old work truck at the end. I'm quite fond of it. I've grown to like it quite a lot, but she's a tool in the arsenal for the channel, basically. Hauler, all that stuff. And it's built together with sheet metal and basically ingenuity. If we ever need to repair it, that's what we're going to be doing. But we're also going to be undercoating the living daylights out of this thing. Not rubberized undercoating. That's a death sentence for vehicles around here. Not bedliner undercoating. That's also a death sentence for vehicles around here. Fluid film, crown, wool wax, that kind of stuff. That's what you need to keep these vehicles around, and you got to do it 3 or 4 times a year. So even before it comes out of the barn, it will be getting an undercoating here and then likely wool wax. It's the most robust I can find for basically keeping her alive, and it will extend its life by quite a lot. Likely the engine will go before the body will at that point. Evan says it's got no power to the key. Hit it and there's no electrical power to any wires. Most likely it's the ignition switch, most likely. When you turn the key, it's not registering anything down on the ignition switch. That would be where I would go. Just make sure that that rod is moving back and forth. And even if it isn't, the actual switch could be bad. You'll have to test the prongs on it. That would be where I would go first and just kind of quickly see. They're prone to go bad on these trucks. They really are. That's why Old Blue actually has an original push, or that's why he has a push button in him now. The key on the 88 column, I believe it's an 88, thick wheel, its start position on the column is no good. The little chicken bone there, the aluminum, I forget what I call it now, but the cast aluminum piece broke long ago, so it doesn't activate the start position on the ignition switch anymore. Easy, push button, works out fine. But the rest of it still works, thankfully. So we can still engage the injection pump, engage all the subsystems and running systems that we need to. What province am I in? New Brunswick. About the poorest province in all of Canada. At least the most heavily taxed. And the way she goes. Yeah, I'm in New Brunswick. Spouses Handyman Services say, love the build. Awesome. I do too. Lonely Cowboy. Howdy. Ricky, it's better than having a new truck payment. You are 100% correct on that one. I don't know how a lot of people are doing it now. We kind of covered this a couple times on the channel, and we'll cover that when Old Blue's out by the Ford dealership, and we might even take it to the Chevy dealership and stuff, and just see how the Mega Cab build stacks up against trucks of its caliber, cost-wise, and then trucks that were built to replace this truck. Basically, same spec, as in dually, quad cab, diesel, four-wheel drive. We'll see how it stacks up on that. Might do a little bit of math in that video. But see, is the old truck really as bad as they say it is compared to the new trucks? But I can already tell you for free, this truck can do about 70 to 80% of what the new trucks can for the exact same spec. Might not be able to tow as much, and might not be able to handle as much weight, and might not be able to stop as hard. But for the everyday fella working a heavy-duty truck, the old iron is still more than capable of doing her. DT466, or at least a DT360. Yeah, most likely we'll be diving into one of those international engines. Again, had a buddy who said, I have a Cummins in my truck. How about you get one of those so you can make fun of me? I'm like, that's not a bad idea. But the 6.9 IDI will be humming away in here basically until she goes pop, or until the International comes out to play and we can replace him, because the Internationals will be, we're building him to do some tasks the Mega Cab has to be able to do as well. That way we're not without a truck. But either way, the 6.9 IDI will be a spare engine, even if it doesn't go bang in the Mega Cab, for the International. Because we'll be beating on that poor International pretty hard. Kind of like a snare drum. What do we got? Evan says, you should build a mud race mower. Wouldn't be a bad idea. We got a lot of snow soon, and there'll be a lot of things that we could kind of zoom around on. We could. I'll think about it. We'll dive into it maybe. We got a lot on our plate international-wise, and a couple other things that we kind of want to get done over the winter. But maybe like a mud mower, snow mower, something fun. You know, we might dive into something like that. Small engine work. What else we got? Lonely Cowboy. Oh, that's for Evan. Sorry, I'll leave that one alone. Future plans for the Mega Cab. So we touched on that just recently, just at the very beginning of the live stream, but I'll go over it quickly. Interior, we had to throw basically all the chrome work back on her. She's kind of a bare unit right now. New mirrors. We have one of those cutting board box liners, the plastic box liners. For the working fella, every day, like dragging steel and stuff across it, I don't care what bed liner you have. Raptor liner, Husky liner, whatever you have, it's not going to stand the test of time. Driving steel bits and axles and basically heavy iron bits across the bed. There's no bed there's no in-bed under, I can't even speak. There's no bed coating that can survive that type of abuse other than those plastic in-bed inserts. So for us, we're going to be getting one of those. They trap a little bit of moisture underneath, but we'll be undercoating the bed on the top side in between the plastic bed liner thing. That way, you know, we can work the truck like we intend to without destroying the truck. Not saying that the truck hasn't been used for wood and stuff and is more hooped than you would think, but either way, it's going to clean up a couple things anyway, and he'll be a good addition. Other than that, we want to build a front bumper insert. Basically, the kind of looks like an H. Goes on the chrome bumper, but we're going to build it so that it can hold a winch. Be pretty cool. We have wooden sides that we're going to be putting on this. Very period correct, like old 80s truck vibes. A slip tank, a toolbox, and most likely fifth wheel mounts, minus the fifth wheel. We want to be capable of fifth wheel hauling, but we don't have a fifth wheel anything yet. So it's not a big crucial factor, but we want to put the rails in just so we have them. Truck bed crane was an idea, but we won't be putting it in this truck. We'll likely be putting it on a trailer, because it's not often that, you know, right now we're still young and spry, so we don't need the crane. as of yet. That's the idea anyway. Guess it's too late now for the triangle vent windows on the side now, eh? I would say so. A lot of fellas wanted me to do that. And I understand. It's a big blank canvas. It's very big, very blank. But what we actually plan on doing is we're going to have some vinyl stickers made up. Hi-Ho Stable Garage. It's going right there. It's going to fill in the blank. That's going to take up a lot of the void, and we also have some pinstriping stuff. We're kind of going to go around it, hide some of that unused space. The triangle vent window, we were thinking on doing it, but really a lot of this came down to time. There's a lot of things that I wish we would have done a little bit on this, changed out how we did some things here and there, and et cetera, et cetera. Maybe found, say we wanted a DT466 down the road in, let's say, a year. Well, if we could have just kept working on the project for an entire year, not drove it, not needed it, just built it around that power plant, basically. Built the drive shafts around that, all that stuff. We don't have the time luxury on this build. So that's why we made some decisions as we went, even if they're temporary, permanent ones. You know what I mean? So the little added wing window, that also brings why we never squared off the back doors, all that stuff. Why we never got a van roof, all that stuff. Certain things we would have done differently if we had more time to go source those parts, get them, etc., etc. But we kind of just had to work with what we had. That's basically all she goes. But she turned out pretty darn slick for that, pretty much. I'm quite content with it, really. Lonely Cowboy. Mud mowers are fun to build. Got a 96 Craftsman and a 2013 21 horsepower. Still can't get the dang thing started. That sucks. Most likely on those newfangled engines. Newfangled light duty. No. What am I trying to say? I don't know what I'm trying to say. But on those little guys, most likely it's not points ignition on that. I think points ignition has been gone for a long, long time. Likely a solid state, almost like an ignition coil at this point. So maybe one of those are bad. Who really knows? But it shouldn't be timing or anything. Anyway, you'll figure it out. Most likely it's just fuel. I'm just talking out of my mouth. Who really knows? Without seeing it, I don't really know. It's just the way she goes. But I wish you good luck nonetheless. All right, they're talking amongst themselves. Been a while since I've seen the rat rod on the channel. Will it return? Yes. As soon as the Mega Cab is done, we are starting back up on the 54 International. Really, to tell you honest truth, when we were building the winter truck, I really had to sit down and think which one would take more time. The International to finish and drive that in the winter, or start the Mega Cab from scratch. The main deciding factor was glass. Glass is a wild card right now for the International. We really don't know what we're going to do on that front windscreen. It's technically illegal to drive with polycarbonate glass around here, laminate glass, or not laminate glass, but polycarbonate around on the road here because of our inspections and stuff. It's something to do with flammability risk. So you need actual glass in these old vehicles in order to pass your inspection, unless you go antique, but that's a whole other ball game to get into. So basically we want actual glass. Sourcing glass is pretty rough around here. You almost have to buy a complete other truck. It's not good. So when it came to that, that was the deciding factor on building the Mega Cab or finishing the International. But that's also the reason why we haven't touched it since April. Basically, since the Trans Am, then it was Trans Am to immediately Mega Cab build. After the Mega Cab, we will be starting back on the 54. Hopefully, there's only 2.5 months worth of work, and then we're waiting on glass. Way she goes. We'll be building that during the coldest months of the year, though. That's always the way she goes. Plastic bed liners definitely work the best, says Ricky. They do hold moisture, though. That was caused the front of my box to rust. Yeah, it's unfortunate, especially if you have a little bit of rake to your truck. What I always do if I run the box liners, take a 1/2-inch drill bit, drill like 5-6 holes right in the front, right where it kind of gets spot welded together, where the seam sealer and all that stuff is. Drill a couple holes right there. You put your plastic box liner in, you're never going to see it anyway. but it allows all that moisture and water that collects in there just to flow right out onto the ground. It's awesome. Haven't really had a rust issue that way, but I haven't kept a vehicle long enough with one of those box liners in it to really see if it works. But in mornings and stuff, you can see it dripping out of the truck, so it must be doing something. If it's a Briggs & Stratton Intech motor, it's probably the decompression lever on the cam causing it hard to start crank. See, you likely know a lot more on small engines, and especially tractors. You seem to know a lot on old equipment there, Ricky. I think you're a mechanic in disguise. No, but yeah, definitely check out what Ricky's saying on that. I don't deal with a lot of small engine stuff. Really country boy, but don't really have to mow a lawn or anything like that. So either way, you just use the push mower. Lonely Cowboy. Colt, I have figured out on everything. I put an old 10-horse carb on there, no electronics. I took out all the electrical because I don't want any failures. Not a bad plan, really. The less electrical gremlins you can have, the better off you're going to be. There's nothing worse than trying to start something and it's because the coil fried out itself or the points fried out itself or just whatever. Or ground lets go. I remember when we were doing I think it's episode 2. The international series is quite a long series, but we're going to be doing the rest of the international videos kind of like we did on the Mega Cab. Subject, start to finish. Subject, start to finish. Instead of every 3 days, whatever we filmed, doing that for the video, I think it'll be a lot more interesting that way. Yeah. Where were we? The Dingman. What's the story on finding the Bullnose IDI Super Cab long bed 4x4 manual? I've been looking and have found one so far, even for sale. Rarer than hen's teeth. They are quite rare, especially in that combo, because what Old Blue was originally, he was a custom cab, basically. He was ordered that way. Custom, base model XL, roll-up windows, base model heat. It actually only had an AM radio when I first got it. That predates the channel by a couple years, but only had an AM radio, base model stuff. But the reason it was custom is during the four-wheel drive selection process, he added the manual transmission option. He added the shift-on-the-fly transfer case. The manual lockout hubs came factory on this. And it had big steel skid plates on dual tanks. The front dual skid plate, kind of worse for wear. It was kind of parked up in a mud bank, and the mud over the years kind of chewed her up. But the back one's still on there. This doesn't have tank straps. It was held up by those factory skid plates, and they were robust. Very robust. So when that guy, what I'm trying to get at is it wasn't a cookie cutter truck. It was ordered off a spec sheet for someone. I wish I could find the original build sheet for it. I guess I could always look up the VIN and get pretty close, but that was they're hard to find. I've seen super cabs, quite a lot of super cabs, but none with the 6.9 IDI 4-speed and the manual shift on the fly transfer case. Those are they're hard to find. This is the way she goes, especially in 3/4 ton, 1 ton. My grandfather is a master, says Ricky. Small engine mechanic and former diesel mechanic. Oh, yeah. Well, you're taught well then. The grandfather's knowledge is always best when it's passed on to the grandson. So you're doing pretty hot, not going to lie. Lonely Cowboy. I think I'm going to do a Cummins 4BT swap on the dang thing. No more problems. Just crap ton of torque. Tractor pulling anyone. Not really into tractor pulling. I like to go watch them. I don't watch them on TV, but sometimes they have them down at the fairgrounds and stuff like that. I'll always go see a gourd horse pull and a tractor pull and all that stuff. Pretty darn slick. So 4BT, 6BT, can't really go wrong with either. But there's a lot of good diesel engines, like DT466. You have the two-stroke Detroits. Those are neat. What else we got? 7.3 power stroke. It doesn't make a lot of power. It makes more power than an IDI, but the dang thing's nearly unkillable. Even the 6.0 power strokes, they make boatloads of power. If you have to sink a little bit of time and money into them to make them really reliable with some turned up power. But they're not no 6.4 max force. They're not a 6.4 power stroke. A 6.0 power stroke is actually a half decent power plant. It's just a lot of fellas, they buy them and they try to throw tuners at them and just make them eat black smoke, and the EGTs just cook them right out. This is the way she goes. But they're not a bad engine, really. They're really not that bad. The world's your oyster when it comes to diesel power plants. I even think an old Perkins would be quite sweet in one of these old trucks. Maybe not one this big, but maybe an F-150, a little four-cylinder. That would be pretty darn cool. Should get a snowmobile, 1980s, 1990s Ski-Doo. That would be pretty sweet, not gonna lie. Like the I'm just gonna send it guy, the guy who ramps them and all that stuff. That's pretty cool. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. We don't have a lot of time on our hands to do outdoor activities, really, right now, because we're trying to get our own fleet done, at least what we have right now, before we really start to dive into other things. But that being said, another reason why around these parts, if you have a snowmobile season, it's usually only about 2 months. That's it. They don't hold very well. Usually we have a pretty heavy snow, then it melts all away, or either it's a lot of snow or it's just really cold with no snow all year. There's really no in between. When am I going to start back on the International? As soon as the Mega Cab's basically out and driving. That's why we're doing the interior as we're putting it around. As long as the installation is in it, I am happy. And the 2 seats, seat belts, all that stuff. The International will be coming, but we have to finish this guy drivability-wise before the International starts back up. But I'm quite excited. It's been a while since the International has looked like a truck. It's been sitting for about half a year with the cab pointed up at the stratosphere and stuff like that. So, no, it'll be pretty darn slick once it's all done up. I think so. Can't wait to start working on it again. Still in school and was Larry for Halloween, lol. Oh, that's awesome. All right, so what we really want to talk about on this live stream, started to get kind of cold, not going to lie. I better warm up. Where's my warm-up liquid? Oh, I don't know where I put it. Either way, let's just talk about the pop. But what we really wanted to talk about is a couple of the comments that we had on the last video. Now, I understand. Let's just get that out of the way right now. I completely understand why some people would be either A, disappointed, or B, not impressed, or C, mad about the outcome of the paintwork on the Mega Cab build. But let's just be frank, right now, the plan for the Mega Cab from the start was always work truck. It's kind of how she goes. Now, their concerns, their points are valid. That's just how it is. If I paid someone to do the paint job that we did on this truck, would I be happy? No. I wouldn't be. But I likely would have paid them to do a two-tone on a big truck like this. It's over a $10,000 paint job done professionally. Heated shop, all that stuff, clean work environment. If they did it and they did the quality of the job that I did, I would not be happy. So from those eyes, looking at this project, I can understand where they're coming from. Now, another concern they had is basically quality control on our bodywork. So that would be fiberglass bodywork on the roof. I'll get into that in a second. Fiberglass bodywork on the roof, fiberglass bodywork on the doors, all that stuff. And they're good concerns, again. But the main reason why it kind of, had a rougher texture is we had to we could only afford to not paint this guy for so long until we're running out of time. Again, unheated shop, end of November. The fella needs something on him so it doesn't rot away during, the winter time. Because regardless, we are driving this truck very soon, with or without paint. So the paint on it is really fine for what we need. It sucks that I'm not as good as a painter as I wish I was. So runs and stuff like that, it's kind of a catch-22, or not catch-22, but it's kind of, we don't have a lot going for us in this paint environment. So talking about the cold temperatures, paint really has a hard time sticking and staying at cold temperatures. It will still cure fine, and it will still harden fine and everything, but it really likes to run when the steel is cold. We have that going against us, and B, I don't know what I'm doing with a paint gun. I'm about the worst person you want to ask when it comes to bodywork. I just don't have a lot of experience in it at all. Just finagling things around the shop, kind of cleaning things and spraying things. That's about all I got. Really, the most experience I have doing body work would be the red box that we did with Rust-Oleum and a lot of paint thinner. No, and a lot of acetone in it. Turned out all right. Orange peel galore, but it always is kind of a softer paint job because it's always an oil-based paint. This water-based paint's going to dry a lot better, stand the test of time better. That's the main reason why we did it. That kind of brings us into the other point. A lot of fellas, like the ones that were, again, they're legitimate concerns. They're legitimate gripes and whatever. I understand. But another thing that was brought up is they said, why don't you just, if you were going to do a crap job, right? Why didn't you just use spray cans? Why did you go this far into it? Tell you the honest truth, I just to see what we could do. See how we did. Because really, to paint Old Blue, we really only needed to do a scuff and shoot. Scuff, scuff, scuff. Adios, there you go. But I really kind of wanted to see what we were dealing with on the body steel side. And I'm glad we did, because the white door on that side needed a lot of steel work. I actually thought that door was very good, but, it burned us at the end of the day. That kind of stuff. Wanted to see how things really were, and only to do that, we had to strip it all the way down. But when you strip it all the way down, now you have to add primer, you have to add your sealer, you have to do a couple coats of good paint, and then you have to do, your clear coat. Has to be the main step process in order for it to last, especially in a four-season environment. High moisture content, high salt, all that stuff. Now, could we have done this the same way? Rust-Oleum paint, all that stuff. Yes, we could have done a Rust-Oleum-based paint job like we did on the short bed. Would have saved us it would have been about a quarter of the cost, really. The short bed costed nothing. Paint a jug of Rust-Oleum is not a lot. It only took about 1.5 gallons of paint to do this guy, and then 1 gallon of clear. Could have done both of that with a thin of acetone for likely less than $300 and just did a scuff and shoot. Yes, could have. We didn't. We really wanted to just kind of experience a new thing, try it with real car paint. I'm glad we did it. We do have some things that we have to work on. Again, we'll be doing most likely a wet sand and trying our hand at buffing. I've never buffed before, not with a main buffer. Trying our hand on that and seeing just how good we can get with this paint without burning through it. That's the main concern that we have. Another reason is for the way kind of the paint job turned out. If you look everywhere, we're in the barn, you got white paint flakes that literally fall off, spider webs, all that stuff. We could have masked off this entire thing and done it El Profesional, but again, it's not in the budget. It's not in the time. So I hope that explains a little bit on why the outcome came to be the way it was. It is not a professional paint job. It never was going to be. We aimed for as good as we could under the circumstances. It's what we got. But am I still happy with it? Yes, because you got to remember where we're coming from. I drove Old Blue the way it was from the day I got it and fixed it up enough to put it around until the day we cut it apart. with that type of bodywork. A lot of you fellas think it was patina. No, it was just, rot and rust and no paint and a lot of stuff. This is ages better than any of that. You get some shine on this guy. Kind of scary shine. You know what I mean? Haven't been around something so shiny for quite a while. But either way, this truck is still, like, we have the Christmas tree video coming. Basically, as soon as this truck can get out, we're going to the woods, and it very well might get pinstriped. It's just the way she goes. We're trying to keep the trees off of her just likely for a month at least, and let that paint harden up enough so it doesn't scrape it right off the truck. But it might get 1 or 2 pinstripes. It's just the way she goes. It's a good work truck. It's still going to haul scrap. It's still going to haul wood. It's still going to haul basically everything we need it to. Trash. We got to clean the barn. All that stuff. It's the truck that does. It is literally the truck that the channel has been built on. We need the work truck. Work truck quality paint job. I wish we could build like a SEMA quality build. I keep saying SEMA quality, and that can be looked at either way, really. There's some shoddy stuff that goes through SEMA these days. But by SEMA quality, I mean showroom. Basically, you could be super proud of the paintwork, the bodywork, all that stuff. You took years to make your project, or you're a professional and you know exactly what you're doing, so you can do with less. We don't have that luxury for time. We don't have that luxury for experience. That's what you get. But what did we say at the very beginning of this? We were making a 40 or a 40. Yeah, we were making a 50 footer, basically. Looking good at 50 feet. And then I forget who said it, but someone said it's a 50-50 special. Looking good at 50 feet at 50 miles an hour. Couldn't be any more right, really. I like the paint scheme, the blue and black two-tone. And from here, you can't see any runs. You can't see any quality problems with the paint. And we're only 4.5 feet away from it. So it's actually not as bad as it seems. The paint runs really are the main thing that we have to get out. Wet sanding should get out most of those. And then we should have, in an ideal world, had about an extra 2 quarts of the midnight blue, thickening up some of those areas of midnight blue on it, but not within the time frame. Once we shot it, it's just the way she is. It's kind of how she goes. It has enough clear on it. It's not going to hurt it, but it's a little thin in some spots. It's not dark blue. It's more like if you take one of those plastics there and you bend it a bunch, it kind of gets white in the middle. That's kind of what she's going on. You'll see it more in the sunlight and the daylight. It's really hard to see it inside the shop, in the barn, especially with the one light bulb above it. Hopefully we'll get some lighting maybe coming soon, so you can actually see kind of what's going on. That's another thing. Would have helped a lot if I could have seen when I was painting. Is what it is. I'm making excuses, but at the end of the day, she's just a work truck. It's not a SEMA quality build. We never went all out on this truck. We cut some corners on bodywork, cut some corners on things, save some time, save some man hours. It's the way of the road. It's just how she has to do. She has to go back to work. Most likely on the 1954, or not the 54, the F47, most likely we'll be doing a good quality bodywork, paint job, etc., etc. Just one sec, fellas. Rob from Mac Tools is here. If you need any Mac Tools, let him know. I'll be right back. Just give me a second. I gotta go pick up. I gotta go pay the man. Just give me a second.
need maybe grease your U-joint and put two U-joints in the drive shaft.
Yeah.
With the U-joints are in the end of the cup.
Yeah. Here's one sec.
And they sell me a needle, a freaking needle.
Needle greaser?
Yeah, they poke like the Pierce, not the actual one.